And I must say, we have to give the full credit to Dr. G.P. Rao for making sure that the 5 bodies come together to organize this very important event.
My
And
pleasure.
what makes it even more special is that a befitting speaker of international stature is with us today, Mr. Anil Sachdev. Before I come to the introduction of Mr. Anil Sachdev, let me just share a brief context. We all know that last 2.5 months have been extremely challenging for all of us. Last 2.5 months have not only brought a health challenge, it has also brought a social challenge. COVID is a health shock for sure, but it is also a social shock. It is also an economic shock. It is also a demand and supply shock. It is also a liquidity shock. It is also a law and order shock. We have all seen the situations taking place in various parts of the country. And above all, it's a humanity shock. All rolled into one. And when we are going through such extraordinary situations, you require extraordinary thinking. Today, we have more questions than answers. We have questions like, how do we get the life and livelihood both back on track? How do we get the economy back? How do we get the demand generation back? How do we get the supply chains back? How do we get those customers back? And most importantly, how do we get the workers and the manpower back? Look at the situation. We are, I think, living through the biggest contradictions of life. When the workers should have been home, when the migrant people should have been home, then they were on the roads. And now that they are required most in the factories, they are at home. This is the biggest contradiction we are seeing. Another biggest contradiction we are seeing, as a nation, as a humanity, we wanted to flatten the pandemic curve. Unfortunately, we have flattened the economic curve. And how do we really get it back? What kind of leadership style should we adopt? What kind of solution should we have? What kind of decision should we make? And how do we really navigate ourselves out of this situation into a normal? And when we get back to normal, will that be a really normal that we have seen? Or that will be a new normal? We don't know. To seek answers to all of these questions and how do we navigate, we have our own very respected, very beloved Mr. Anil Sachdev. We all have grown listening to him, listening to his thought leadership, listening to his perspectives. And today, he is going to be rubaroo with all of us through this webinar. Mr. Sachdev is a very fine example of a CHRO turning into a CEO, turning into an entrepreneur, and also turning into a very celebrated, globally acclaimed thought leader. Mr. Sachdev, a very warm welcome to you. Just a quick introduction with respect to what Mr. Sachdev is doing currently. He is the founder and CEO of Grow Talent Company Limited and also the School of Inspired Leadership. This school has been created by a consortium of 32 leading firms, and it focuses on 5 pillars of inspired leadership: compassion, diversity, ethics, mindfulness, and sustainability. Today, I think we all need it more than ever. We all need the compassion leadership more than ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, without too much of ado, I have a great pleasure on behalf of all the 5 bodies, that is NHRDN, ISTD, NIPM, Faridabad Management Association, and Delhi Management Association, to present before you Mr. Anil Sachdev. Mr. Sachdev, over to you. And once again, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we need to mute the YouTube because otherwise there is a feedback from the YouTube channel to us. So we might have to mute the YouTube
Okay.
channel.
Anil, so then we will mute the YouTube.
Yes, please.
YouTube. I just wanted to tell the participants the format. While I was talking to dear Anil, that he's the authority on inspiration. And at this stage, everybody, like as Prem said, everybody needs a great leadership to get that rebooting and rejuvenation of the industry. So I requested him to talk about inspiration and particularly on the compassionate part, how easy it is to develop and how easy it is to leverage compassion in the industry, economy, wherever you're working. So he has been very kind. He wants to keep almost half of the time for participants' questions. So he will make a brief presentation. Then we will leave it to the audience to raise questions. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat box. If you write Q, you will understand. Otherwise, that will be taken as a comment. Just write Q and write your question. We have our organizers. They'll pick up your questions and will feed to Anil maybe after about 20-25 minutes. With that brief introduction and the theme that Prem has already said, I will hand it over to Anil for his presentation first, then Q&A. Thank you, Anil. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm greatly honored by this invitation, and I'm so happy to see the collaboration between different professional bodies to make this occasion come alive. I want to begin, as I always do, by asking each one of you to take a moment to think of people in your life who have contributed to your own life in the journey that you have taken so far. People who have shaped you, who have created opportunities for you, and helped you to define who you are today. So please silently think of them and please thank them. I want to thank my parents. Just yesterday, we observed the third Punyatithi of my mother, who was a remarkable woman. In the 92 years of life she spent, she always created abundance. We were 6 siblings, and for our extended families, a joint family of many more people, my mother always was there to generate that feeling that we have more than enough for ourselves. I want to thank my father. When he was an army officer and he was earning only 500 rupees a month, every month he used to take out 50 rupees and donate to Chinmaya Mission for the poor people. And my mother would sometimes ask him that, you know, you have a grown-up daughter who's going to Miranda House to study. She has to buy a new dress. And my father would say, at least she already has a dress. This money is going for people who do not have enough. I want to thank my spiritual teacher, Swami Chinmayananda, who said, study of your own faith. You may study Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, doesn't matter what you study. Remember, the entire purpose of your faith is to become a better person. In your own eyes, becoming a better person. I want to thank all my wonderful colleagues with whom I have worked. Especially want to thank Mr. Vikram Lal of Aisha, a wonderful leader whom I still remember when I met him in my interview with him. He was the finest listener I had met in my life. He spoke just maybe 5% of the time in the interview and had this uncanny ability to bring out the best in you. And there are so many examples that I learned by working with him. I want to thank all the wonderful people right from my first job in Tata Motors to Eicher Consultancy, Grow Talent, and now the School of Inspired Leadership. Because the reason I always look forward to every day is because of this amazing set of people that I've had the chance to work with. You know, today we are going to be discussing the whole subject of compassionate leadership. And this subject of compassionate leadership that we are talking about is such an important subject that it's at the very heart of what is needed in our world today. You see, nobody motivates anyone else in your life. Nobody leads anyone else. All you do is to source inspiration and lead yourself. The biggest lie on leadership is about leading others. No one leads anybody. Inspired leaders understand that they don't lead others. They always lead themselves. First of all, we lead our physical body and our five senses. The way I observe. If I observe with my whole mind, I am able to observe subtle aspects. When I walk into the shop floor and I take one look at the colleagues who work with me, when I walk into the classroom, even in a Zoom digital classroom, I look into the eyes of those whose video is on. I'm able to understand what's going on in their hearts, because the eye-to-eye connection is a soul-to-soul connection when I lead my process of observation with that full presence. The way I listen, not to confirm what I already know, not to feed my biases, but to listen to what the other person is trying to tell me. Listen to not what is just spoken, but also what is implied. When I lead my physical senses of my taste, my touch, my tongue, all this is about serving my health and physical well-being and the quality of my perception, but also the way I relate to others. So the first thing you do is lead your body and the five senses. That is what we also say make sustainability happen. Because when I lead my body in a way that there is enough for everybody, and I do not lead my body in a way that I should grab everything and consume myself, the whole aspect of what we call sustainability comes alive. That means we produce more than what we consume and we give more than what we take. That is the leadership of the physical well-being. When we talk about leading the breath, there is this whole aspect of what comes alive. And there is somebody in this audience amongst the 299 people who is using this opportunity to make some drawings. He has got hold of the tool and that drawing is coming alive, and that now drawing has gone down. So this aspect that we just saw happening, that means somebody was, look at this, somebody is now drawing this on the screen. We don't know who this person is, but the very fact that the person is attempting to put something in the picture, that means he has got hold of the control in this particular meeting. What does this show? That means there is something happening in that person's mind. He is trying to play some interesting creative aspects. And all of us are expected to understand what is this person trying to communicate to us by showing something on the screen, by making a picture, by getting hold of the tool called annotation. The person has got control over the meeting and is trying to demonstrate the creative skills. The way we respond to this will build understanding. To me, this is an example of somebody who is trying to get attention. And there are many things that happen in our homes, in our workplaces, where people are trying to get our attention. You see, it's the need of every human being to be seen, to be heard, and to be appreciated. SHA. In every moment, which we call in Sanskrit kshan, kshan, SHAN, need to be seen, heard, and appreciated. That never goes away in human beings, therefore the N. And you know what? The way we breathe, the way we lead our own leadership process through breath, defines the way we communicate with the world. Because on one hand, our sense organs and organs of perception are making us receive stimuli. On the other hand, that pause that we have before we respond is that leadership of the breath. You know, I do not know how many of you believe in this, but research has shown that the breath energy carries sometimes with it tendencies even from past lives. Some of you may have heard the work of Dr. Norman Weiss from Harvard, the famous psychiatrist who wrote the wonderful book, Many Lives, Many Masters. You know, he did research on people's past lives because he had patients who were suffering from some phobias which were not related to their present life, like this young woman who was always scared of water. And one through hypnosis, he found that when he asked her to go back to early childhood, and as an experiment before her childhood, she suddenly began to talk with a new voice about some other person in whose body she was present as another soul and who had died on water. Dr. Weiss could not believe this, so he actually did the investigation with the help of police and found, yes, that story was true. Like that, he found so many different cases of people who had even carried their past life tendencies. What this means to us as leaders, and especially in this area of human resources, is that when we are trying to understand others, we have to understand sometimes we like people for no reason. Sometimes we also dislike people for no reason. So we have to take a pause that our biases ought not to impact the way we communicate. When we breathe in, there is a time. Then there is a pause before we respond. That pause is the space of choice. I do not know how many of you have read the wonderful book of the Viktor Frankl on man's search for meaning. He was in that, the whole, you see, in the concentration camp. And when thousands and thousands of people were being killed by the Germans, and he nearly came to death many times, and he saw extreme torture to himself and others, he decided, these people can treat me in whatever way they like. But in the pause, I have a choice. They don't own my soul. I will not allow them to take over my soul. In that pause is the human endeavor. In that very moment, that moment of pause is like eternity. So before we react impulsively, before we get angry, before we get upset, like in the coronavirus today, many people are very scared and upset. Why is this happening to us? What is our government doing? What is happening to my workplace? Why are they letting go of people? Why is my salary being reduced? All kinds of mental agitations are going on. But a leader who is a true leader who leads the breath understands the power of diversity, that every situation is unique. And with this unique situation, there is a moment to pause. The breath is followed by the emotional mind, which is the whole subject of compassion that I will delve deeper into. The leadership of the emotional mind has got one particular objective: how to achieve a sense of harmony and balance. If the emotional mind is at rest, the entire being is at ease. If the emotional mind is upset with the agitations of the mind, the entire being gets into the system not being at ease, which is called disease. And the way to overcome all the fears and anxieties and all kinds of issues is the practice of compassion that we will go deeper into today. The emotional mind is in turn also controlled by the intellectual mind, which helps us to make decisions. And that uses our own sense of values and ethics to define why do we put our resources in one aspect or the other. And therefore, the leadership of the intellectual mind. Finally, there is this sense of identity that all of us carry, which is, who am I? What am I good at? What have I done in the past? All this memory that we have collectively of the past, which gives us a sense of identity, which we call ego. Sometimes that ego comes in the way because sometimes we start believing that a lot of it is happening because of our doership, when we know that not even a small act in life we can do just by ourselves. It requires the effort and cooperation and partnership of so many people for us to do what we want. And therefore, the ego, if we don't watch out, can come in the way of our source of well-being inside each one of us, which is inspiration. And that comes from the space that we call mindfulness, which is the life-giving force, that ever-present witness inside each one of us, that is the source of inspiration. And that is why we call ourselves being. Being comes from that source. We are human beings because we have that life-giving force. The life-giving force in the body creates physical well-being, in the breath creates understanding, in the emotional mind creates compassion, in the intellect creates ethics. And when it is shining in the ego, it gives us a sense of purpose rather than doership. Compassion, which is the emotional mind, which is the power of the heart. You see, the power of the heart is 100 times bigger than the power of the head. This is the biggest enabler of inspiration. So now let's go deeper into what this is about. You see, when I step into somebody else's shoes, I call that empathy. But when I do something after stepping into somebody else's shoes, that is called compassion. And how does that happen? You see, the famous person whose reading we all must have done, Carl Rogers, he said the definition of empathy is about stepping into somebody else's shoes. But our teacher, Swami Chinmayananda, said, you cannot step into somebody else's shoes till you learn to step out of your own shoes. It's only when you get out of your own shoes can you literally feel how the other person's shoes feel like. Only then we can experience. When we, for example, this photographer and videographer who walked with the group of migrants all the way when they were going back to their village from Delhi, and the television people traveled with them, these few videographers, they could really understand by those many days that it took to make the journey when they didn't have enough food, water, shelter. Empathy is, and not just hear some account on television. They actually chose to walk with them. When you do that and you feel the same what the other person is feeling, you want to do something about it. Therefore, that leads to then improvement. You see, at the cognitive level, the first is I understand your problem. But then at the second level, you say, okay, I want to help you out, which is the drive because I understand your problem. But the power of that whole thing of the heart is when the affective component takes place. I feel what you feel. It's not just an intellectual understanding and my wanting to do something about it. See, the problem in our world today is that we are all so disconnected. In our organizations today, in our families and communities. We live in the same RWA, but we don't really know the other person. Sometimes you live in the same house for 30 years with another person without ever knowing what matters to that person. Because in this world today, we have learned to be so active on social media, but we are not connected to each other at the deep emotional level. So the question is, how do we therefore reconnect? What would Mahatma Gandhi say to us at this moment when we face the biggest crisis of humanity? You see, this is the guidance we would get from Gandhi. Unlock the law of love. You know, in Aisher and in Aisher Consultancy, we had an acronym for love. Living our values eternally is love. When you are truly having the right values, spiritual values, human values, you unlock the power of division, you remove and you create connection with others. So therefore, we have to begin by saying, how do we heal ourselves? In that, the first question is, what is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves? You know, you ask some people, how are you? And they say, "Ji rahe hain," because they carry that whole feeling of being victims. Whereas there are others, when you ask, how are you? So they say, I'm on top of the world, because they genuinely want to invoke that positive energy. If you feel that you have the confidence, if you feel that you have the power, if you feel that you have all the emotional energy within yourself, that means if you love your own self, compassion begins by being compassionate to yourself. Instead of worrying about what are the guilts because I did not do something in the past, or carrying regrets, or thinking about what you could have done, instead of having all those and all the time being scared, what will others say? What if I fail? Instead of having these kind of negative emotions, if I can heal myself, I can heal the community. And this is a shift which is from being manufacturing to gardening. It is about building about the regenerative power of inspiration and creating designs in our community and organizations that engage multiple forms of capital. And what are these multiple forms of capital? These are some wonderful aspects. For example, how much do we love the entire planet and all the beings, the plants and animals? How do we form circles? For the last 40 years, in all the companies I have been part of, we start the meeting in a morning circle. We hold hands. These days, we do virtual morning circles through Zoom. We recite a prayer from any denomination, and then we begin the day by appreciating each other and thanking each other. That's the power of circles. The attention capital, how much attention you can give to the other person. Most of us are present with others and we are looking at our own phone or our email. How much the gift of attention. How much knowledge are we sharing with others that we have carried over the years? How are we giving the gift of our values and stories of inspiration from our lives that can inspire others? How do we create virtual connections with people which create power of connection? How do we provide the gift of time for people who require that time? And how do we care for people who require care? There are multiple forms of capital. And therefore, we have to look at the new currency. For example, the new currency is the time that we are able to give. And we could think of time banks, so that if I have invested the time in serving others in my younger age, a time may come when I may be requiring help from others, and it's time for people to help me. So can we have a concept of not financial banks, but time banks? Can we think of social networks in the community which build trust, where we truly understand each other? Can we think of the capital of attention by practice of mindfulness? So we design whole systems based on empathy. That's why in organizations, we are saying now transform employee experience. Use mindfulness to observe the way employees live and travel, and find out what's happening in their community and their homes. so that you can do pro-social acts. You see, therefore, as Gandhi said, when we look at the world from multiple forms of capital, we understand there is so much in our heart to give. Compassionate leadership then becomes extremely powerful because we know that we are not just looking at everybody's greed, but we know that in the world, in our heart, we have enough and we have that abundance to help each other and provide that loving kindness. Therefore, we move to the most important questions that I am inspired to ask as compassionate leaders to myself and to others. The three important questions. Who are the people in my life that matter to me? For Gandhi, the whole of India mattered. For you, it might be the people who work with you and the family that you live with. Or it could be the entire city. Depends upon the power of your vision. Question number two. What are their needs that you are inspired to serve? And third, see, each one of you have some special gift. God has made every individual unique. And whenever you have been at your happiest, best, your gifts have emerged. So when you spend time in honoring your gifts and saying, how can I leverage those to serve the needs of people who matter to me? You then find your higher purpose. You then define the power of true compassionate leadership, where you will be doing your best to serve others through the uniqueness and through the strengths that you possess. Which brings me to my story. Raja was with me the other day in this HRD network forum where I had shared this story, and I've shared it on a few other forums. You see, it was 26th of November 2008, and the message came on the television that the terrorists had entered the Taj Hotel. And those days we were working with the Taj leadership team. So I sent a message to Raymond Bixson, the MD, and he said, Anil, pray for us. I also sent a message to Karambir Khan, the general manager. He said the same thing. And then the message came on the TV screen that the entire global leadership team of Unilevers is there. So I sent a message to Nitin Paranspe, the chairman of Levers, and he said the same thing, Anil, pray for us. I sent a message to Leena Nair, who was the head of HR. She also said the same thing. All night I was sending emails to many of my friends all over the world saying, please pray for our friends in Mumbai. And early morning, the first flight in the morning, I took and reached Mumbai and went straight to Colaba and to President Hotel, where H.N. Srinivas, the HR head, and many others were assembled there. I was with them trying to say, how can we serve the people of Mumbai? Sometime later in the day, we got the news that Karambir's wife and children had been killed. And H.N. Srinivas turned to me and said, Anil, I know your sister lives in Chandigarh. Her husband is a retired army officer. Could he please go to the home of Karambir's parents, who is a retired general, and his wife, and please break the news before the television breaks the news? So, of course, in any case, that evening I went to Wellington Mews, the Taj guest house, and I and my colleague Shailendraji went there. And now we entered this room, and I gave a hug to Karambir and sat down. It was just him and his parents. Now, what do you tell somebody who's just lost his wife and children? So I was just sitting in silence. Then his mother spoke after a few moments and said, Anilji, may I share something with you? I said, yes, Mrs. Kang. She said, you know, Anilji, when the terrorists entered the hotel, then Karambir called me and said, Ma, a part of me wants to run to the old wing of the Taj to protect my own wife and children. But the other part of me says, how can I leave my own troops, the people I work with? I am the son of a soldier. And said, Ma, I hope Vaheguruji will forgive me for making this choice. So that night when I returned to the hotel, then we met other guests who had been evacuated from the Taj. And they talked about Thomas Verghese, the chief steward of the restaurant, as to how Thomas and his colleagues formed a human chain around the guests, helping all of them to escape. And when Thomas helped all his own staff to escape, And lastly, when he was about to leave, the terrorists shot him dead. Next day, Mr. Ratan Tata and Mr. Krishna Kumar, the vice chairman, met Mrs. Thomas Verghese and said, Mrs. Verghese, we don't know what to say to you, but we can't, words of thanks are not good enough. But did you know that your husband was such a courageous person? And Mrs. Verghese said, sir, I don't know whether he was courageous. All I know is that he loved the people of Taj and he loved working there. You see, that night before I went to bed, I understood by the teachings of my spiritual teacher who had told us, when you are inspired by higher purpose, the whole power of compassion comes alive in your heart. That gives you the courage to overcome all the fears, and that makes you rise in love. So rising in love, that's what I understood, the power. And so I wanted to end by saying compassionate leadership is the one that makes a difference. In the COVID crisis of today, we need to be compassionate to all our stakeholders. We need to understand the multiple stakeholders. On one hand, we have to understand our customers and feel for them, our suppliers, feel for them, our employees at all levels, especially the weakest sections of the employees. We have to feel for them. We also have to feel for the larger community. When we invoke compassionate leadership in ourselves, we will derive the tremendous strength. Compassion builds resilience. That helps in harmony. That helps in extraordinary strength. And so if there is one thing we may want to start practicing, and in small ways, if you don't see someone with a smile, give him one of you all. Say thank you, express gratitude, call people you love in your life today and call them and talk to them, give them the gift of your time. Ask for forgiveness from people for whom you are carrying some hurts in your heart. This is not the time in life to have grudges and anything like that. Clean up your heart, connect with others, and invoke compassion in your heart. It's the biggest favor you will do to yourself, to others. So this is what I wanted to say. And I want to thank you for listening patiently to me for a little more than 30 minutes. And let's spend the last 20, 25 minutes of our time in responding to your comments and questions.
Wonderful, Anil. As usual, you make everyone touch our hearts. And you also said heart is the most powerful one. And you said while the government has asked us to unlock, you said unlock love. You said all of us should have a list of people who matter to us and must understand what they need and use our gifts, leverage those gifts to serve them. What a wonderful ending with that story of Tas, where you said love, compassion, if it's backed by a larger purpose, higher purpose, it gives you the courage and you rise in love and you succeed in helping people, leading yourselves, leading others. Wonderful. I would request all participants to just introspect for a minute and write down what is that feeling at the top of your heart, top of your mind at this stage. Participants, please write down. What is that one feeling that is giving to you? Is it gratitude? Is it love? Is it compassion? Is it giving? Is it forgiving? Is it love? Anything. Oh, wonderful. Compassion. Great. Oh, forgiveness. Oh, wonderful. Serving others. Oh, gratitude. Sharing love. Oh, peace. Wonderful. Oh, humility. Very inspiring, loving, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're all with us and you're all with Anil. And so with that, we'll open it to the Q&A session. I have requested President DMA Yogesh and President FMA Abhay to see the questions, and looking at the limitation of time, they will prioritize a few questions and raise those. So others, please do not mind. We will copy the chat box and we'll go to Anil separately and get some answers for you. So can we have the questions, Abhay and Yogesh?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So my compliments to Mr. Anil Sachdevji. Sir, wonderful, like always, a wonderful, inspiring session. Towards the end, I actually got goosebumps. I was actually visualizing, and I'm feeling very emotional as of now also, because the way you said, forgive people. So the first question I'll start with is from Mr. Bimal Rath. He's asked a question. Compassionate leadership is an inside out phenomenon. Self-awareness is the key. How does one filter the wide range of sensory perceptions from outside and choose which ones to respond to?
Wonderful question, Bimal. Thank you. And we have been colleagues. Bimal and I have worked together for many years. So thank you for asking. You know, I'm reminded we were doing the day the Kargil war broke out in Kargil, we were there doing a workshop in Kargil and Leh on transformation leadership. And Anjali Raina, who heads Harvard Business School in India, and her husband Ishan Raina, who was heading Euro RSG, they told a story when they were traveling to that workshop. They said they were in this bus station with a lot of heat. It was heat summer, lot of noise. People were running around, sweating. And Ishan was telling Anjali, why are we going by this bus? And, you know, we should have taken some other mode. So one very simple person, like a fakir, you know, like a sadhu, he was standing next. So he started laughing. He said, man ko shant karo, sab kuch theek ho jayega. It's a very interesting thing. That means when we are, our mind is completely peaceful and there is that inner calmness, then we see the world the way the world is, not the way that we are. Most of the time we are agitated and not having that inner calmness. Therefore, we are not able to pay attention to the quality of observation and listening, which is making us understand the way the world is. And we are continuously looking at it. So just quieten down, take a moment, watch your breath, invoke that peace. Then you will be able to really understand and gain the true meaning also of self-awareness and the world.
Abhay, next question.
Yeah. So Anilji, thank you very much for your insightful knowledge and sharing all the wisdom which you have gained over 40 years. So we have a couple of questions. So one question that does combining compassion and business works? Compassion is openly talked about in industry, but hardly practiced.
Okay.
I'll give you one example. In when we worked in Eicher, we used to, for example, at one time, because those days, in the early days, we didn't have air conditioners in our own offices, right? And we thought that the temperatures are reaching high and we should provide air conditioners in the early days. So the first question we asked ourselves, how will we first provide the right room temperature into the factory shop floor? I remember the discussion going up to all senior management, that what right do we have to air condition our offices if we don't have the proper cooling for the workers on the shop floor? So the whole conversation was the decisions we are making, is it in the interest of the weakest person? I remember when there was another moment, we have to give air conditioned cars to our managers. So Vikram Lal said, before you give it to senior people like myself, are you making sure that whoever has got the entitlement to buy a car has the same facility? So at another moment, our people were being frisked at the factory gate. So I remember our Vikram Lal asking us a question, why are you not frisking me or the senior managers? Why only the workers? And we went into a lot of discussion and found that this process of frisking only workers was a wrong practice. From that day onward, we stopped frisking and said, anybody at random can be checked, including the MD, including the GM and everybody. As a result of these practices, therefore, something happened. Soon after that, there was a major strike in Faridabad. And all the unions decided to go on strike, but our union and Eicher decided not to have the strike. We decided to remain open. And a mob of 5,000 people came to burn our factory. Next door to Eicher, they put the Hitkari pot factory on fire. But you know what happened that day? Our union leaders stood at the gate with the lathis, and they told the mob, if you walk into this factory, you will do so over our dead body. This is our company. That is the amount of love and affection that happened in that organization, because the entire management was always asking, how can we serve the interest of every single employee? When we did a major restructuring of the company at that time, and by the way, I'm going to write a chapter for a book shortly on this subject. We always asked ourselves, we were to restructure the entire company, 1,500 people were being made surplus. We retrained them, and we, for the first time in India, transferred workers from one role of one company to the other. They resigned from Eicher Tractors at the full salary, got appointed by Eicher Motors, and so on. There's a major case study, because the whole thing was, if you practice fairness and if you care for your people, you will get outstanding business results, and you will win the love and affection of your people. So it's very practical.
Yeah. Well said, Anil, well said. Compassion and business can go together. Yeah, next question, please.
Yeah, very well said. The next question is from Arun Mozi. So it's asked, how to handle colleagues who take advantage of our compassionate leadership towards them? I know this comes with a prejudice. When our compassion is taken for granted?
I will just narrate a little incident, a little story. There was this disciple and a spiritual teacher on the banks of the river, and a scorpion was coming to come and bite. And that teacher was putting the scorpion gently aside. It was again coming to bite the teacher, but he was putting him aside with the help of a stick. Again, it was attempting to bite. Again, he was putting it aside. Then a big wind came and the scorpion was dropped in the river. Next thing, the teacher jumped into the river to save the scorpion. So disciple said, what are you doing? This scorpion was trying to bite you, and you are trying to now protect it. So the teacher said, the nature of the scorpion is to bite. It is my nature to save. So my answer to the question on what to take others, you do what makes you feel is the right thing and makes you happy. Even if others take advantage, in the long run, being compassionate will always make you win. In the short term, some people will take advantage, ignore them. You be compassionate regardless. Ultimately, that will give you peace of mind and happiness. And the others who take advantage, ultimately, it will give them more conflict in their life. So just remember that.
Yeah, yes. So sir, now next question. Most of the times we are carried away by our emotions and by our egos. Being human and spiritual being, how do we overcome these barriers?
Very simple. Every day, engage in some acts of kindness and start maintaining a journal at the end of the day. For example, if you have not appreciated the person working next to you, let me give an example. Balbir Singh, idhar aaiye jara, 1 minute yahan aaiye. I just want you to meet somebody here. ये जो बलबीर सिंह हैं, नीचे नीचे देखिए, ये बलबीर जो हैं, ये हमारे साथ 1992 से काम कर रहे हैं और ये उत्तराखंड के रहने वाले हैं. इन्होंने जित मेहनत से, जिस प्यार से हम सबकी सेवा की है 1992 से, मुझे लगता है ये मेरे भाई की तरह है तो मेरे घर में काम करते हैं, हमारे ऑफिस में काम करते हैं, पर बलबीर सिंह जैसा नेक आदमी, सच्चे दिल का आदमी मैंने कभी देखा नहीं, अभी 28 साल से. और इस तरह के अगर हम अपने इनके साथ ऐसा काम करेंगे तो मैं समझता हूं कि ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण चीज है. तो थैंक यू बलबीर सिंह, जो आप हमारे लिए इतनी सेवा करते हैं. बहुत थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक यू.
What a way to give an answer to the question. It's a real example. Really.
I strongly feel like this. I think it's just that destiny has made me the employer and him the employee. But you know, he has many more better qualities than I have. I learn every day by being with him, and that is such an important aspect. Yeah.
You are inspiration. Next question, please, Yogesh.
Wonderful, sir. So this is from Sir George Williams Academy. What picture should I give to the millennial students who are very agitated and afraid in the current situation? So the youngsters, who probably joined the courses with rosy-eyed, however, they suddenly realize that things are not what they had expected, and now they are afraid. So your wisdom, sir.
Yeah, in my opinion, the millennials are people who are wonderful. They are digital natives. They learn in new ways. They work in different ways. We have to get them to channel their energy for doing something constructive. Run a challenge for them, like a kindness challenge. Ask them to compete with each other on a trophy, on like a kindness challenge. Let them engage in acts of kindness for serving senior citizens in their community, for feeding the hungry stray animals on the road, for looking after the wonderful trees and plants. It could be any projects. Get them involved in activity, including digital projects, in engaging in acts of kindness. When you channel their energy in this direction, you will find that they will have many creative ideas. So create space and ask them the right questions and give them encouragement. And always have your loving kindness and presence with them to give them that support, just in case they have fear. If you show abundance in your heart and you show that you deeply care, the millennials will rise to the occasion, because many of them have a lot of creative ideas. You just need to create the space and engage in the right activity with them.
Wonderful.
So that they will do that.
Space, care, and support. Any other question?
Yeah. So it is related to post-COVID, that COVID-19 may have made a lot of effect on the minds of the people and change their behavior. So do you think people will change the way they behave, and how do prepare ourselves to lead the teams in the post-COVID scenario? So that is the
See,
question.
one thing is true. It is already made change in people, whether people like it or not. First of all, there is raw fear inside their mind, right? And most people are observing this Arogya Setu app. How many cases are there in my community? Am I green? Am I orange? So on one hand, there is raw fear. On the other hand, people are understanding that life is what happens to you when you're planning something else. And many people have started writing wills. They have started doing these things because it has permanently changed them. And one thing is true, for the next several years, we will either work from home or we will work partly from home. There will be nobody in this planet who will be working only in a so-called office all the time. Therefore, it is going to completely redefine the way we live and work for next several years. And I think this is the right time. Therefore, if there is one thing that we need to have compassion towards ourselves, is developing learning agility. I don't have time to go into the depth of that subject of learning agility, but very key three things in learning agility: self-awareness, learning to work with people who are not like us, therefore people agility, and sourcing creativity even when we have fear, so that we find new answers, and therefore have that agility of the mind, agility of deal with people, and understanding your own self and your strengths, which you need to honor. If you do these three things, you will master learning agility, and that will make you respond to what the COVID crisis is throwing to us.
Looking at the time constraint, Yogesh, one last question.
Yeah, sure. So this is from our old friend Dr. Akhil Busrai. He's given a business scenario. He's saying there is a possibility of headcount reduction post-crisis. Now, will that be considered as a non-compassionate act? How does one explain this to the employees, people who are probably likely to be asked to leave?
Very good question. First of all, I will quote from Guru Nanak Dev: even when you have to hang somebody, do it with a tear in your eye. Be completely transparent and open. Tell your people the difficulty that exists. Tell your people how much cash you have. Do not hide anything. Tell them as to what the ideas are to generate more cash. Tell them about how the ideas are getting limited and therefore you are not able to come out with new ideas, and therefore you have to let go of some people. Let there be an equally inclusive process. And remember, let the goodbyes be warm. Let them not be unhappy goodbyes, because time is a great leveler. Today you may have had to let go of people, but tomorrow when the opportunities come, you should welcome them with your open heart. And that is the way you will build a relationship, that even though you had to ask them to go, you actually made a friend in the process and did not spoil your relationship.
Thank you, Anil. Friends, what we do is, Anil has to leave exactly at 6:30. So Mr. Mukesh Jain has to do the vote of thanks. But then we can continue for 5-10 minutes and discuss amongst ourselves if you so like. So we'll keep the chat on. So I am supposed to sum up. I can't think of a better way of doing it. I'll repeat what I said. Have a higher purpose. Unlock your love. Have courage to rise in love. Serve those who need you with your gifts. That's what Anil said in a wonderful way, with a lot of examples, stories, his life experiences, great way he did it. With that, I'll request Mr. Dinesh Jain, you have a point, you can make it, sir. Otherwise, I'll go to Mr. Mukesh Jain. Mr. Dinesh Jain? Okay, he's not there. Mr. Mukesh Jain. Sir, unmute yourself. Close. Unmute yourself. The press chairman, ISTD.
So we are indeed grateful to Anil sir for a wonderful session. I, on behalf of NHRD Delhi NCR chapter, Faridabad Management Association, Delhi Management Association, NIPM Delhi NCR chapter, and ISTD, convey our sincere gratitude and thanks for your wonderful session, sir. And to Dr. G.P. Rao, who's the creator of this program. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Prem Bhai. Thank you, Abhay sir. Thank you, Yogesh sir. Thank you, Dinesh Jain sahab, for coming together on a platform to organize this wonderful program. And I'm sure all my seniors and all my colleagues have enjoyed the session, because Anil sir is an authority and an institution in himself. So we are grateful to you, sir. And I'm sure all my seniors who have participated here, all my friends and colleagues who have participated here, thank you very much, sir. And we'll have more such type of sessions with all of you. And thank you very much.
Anil, as promised, we are letting you go at 6:30 because of your international next meeting. Otherwise, we wanted to hold you back. Thank you so much.
I have one request to make from you. Just one request to make to everybody who was present today. Pick up the phone and call somebody that you have been holding something in your heart. Any misunderstanding, any difficulty, any feeling of hurt. Call that person tonight and have a conversation. And second, please, the important people in your life, could be family, could be friends, could be colleagues, please call them and tell them and thank them for whatever they have done in your life. So that's all my request to you. If you can please do that, I would be very grateful, because I think we need to spend this time in really appreciating the ones who have defined our life, and also overcoming any rancor or feeling in our hearts. So please, life is too short for us to carry any regrets, and for us to not take the effort to allow the other person to win, even if that person has done something wrong. That is my request to you. It will make all of us happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Once again, grateful to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Premji. Thank you. Very nice to see old friends like Akhil, Subhash, and many other friends. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Yogesh, you and Abhay, if you think there is a very important question left out, please raise. Maybe one of us can answer. We have got seniors here. Yogesh and Abhay.
Yeah,
if you think some important question.
One question, how to draw a line between need and greed? Okay, and how to say person yes for the need and no for the greed. So
Okay.
sometimes, yeah.
Anybody like Akhil or Subhash want to answer? Okay. Yes, Akhil. Unmute, Akhil. Unmute, Akhil. Akhil, unmute.
Can you repeat the last part of your question, Abhay?
Yeah, so how to draw a line between need and greed, and how to say the person yes for the need and no for the greed.
Need
How
and
to
greed.
convince.
Need and greed. Good question. The fact is that people behave the way they are measured. So if you reward greed, you will create more greed.
Okay.
But if you just meet the need requirement and stop people from being greedy and asking for more, a pattern of behavior gets set up that actually will not give rise to greed anymore.
Okay.
People will only take what is needed. We saw this in Japan during the tsunami, that when people went into the store, there was no checkout, nothing. But they only took what was needed for their family. They left everything else behind. And then we saw recently during the riots in US that people were going and buying the whole shelf of toilet paper, not thinking of others. That is greed.
Okay.
The first one was need. The cultural pressure on Japanese that take only what is needed for you and be kind to others. And Anil put it very nicely that the act of kindness goes a long way. So in my opinion, Abhay, I would look at greed as something that we encourage people. We do not stop them. And the moment we discourage greedy behavior, people will automatically go down to the needy behavior and contain themselves there.
Okay. I'm greedy. I want one more question from Yogesh.
Okay, sure. So there's
Because that's the need.
Oh, yeah.
Yogesh.
So there is this question from Dr. Mahesh Maheshwari. He says, after COVID-19, how are the leaders going to deal with misery, pain, and fear in the organization, yet get the desired result? So like the way Mr. Sachdeva was saying, everybody's looking at the Arogya Setu app, looking and seeing whether they are safe, etc. So there is that raw fear in all of us.
Okay.
And we are afraid of going out. So how will a leader deal?
Okay. Anyone wants to answer this? Subhash, I can see Ashokji, Deepak. Anyone wants to answer? Oh, come on.
I can answer that.
Yes, please, please.
See, the whole situation is that people try to do things which they don't believe.
Okay.
So they lack courage of conviction in their behavior. As Akhil mentioned, there's a fine distinction between greed and need. Similarly, there is a fine distinction between self-confidence and overconfidence. So one has to understand where to draw the need,
Okay.
where to draw the line, and where to contain your own
Wonderful.
behavior.
Wonderful. Mukesh ji, can we recognize the presence of people who have come, joined from outside Delhi NCR?
Yes, sure,
anyone?
sir.
Many people. I see Ravindra Verma. Then you said some.
First of all, Madam Alka Mittal, Director HR from ONGC.
Okay.
Our past presidents from ISTD.
Yeah.
Dr.
Sunil Abrawal was there. Sunil Abrawal.
Sunil Abrawal.
Yes.
We saw Akhil.
We are from Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad, sir. Your name,
Praveen
sir?
Kumar and M.A. Baraya.
Oh, Baraya, sir.
Okay,
Nice.
wonderful, sir.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful, wonderful.
So,
anyone else who want to recognize?
lot of chapter chairmen are here from ISTD.
Yeah, we thank all of them, and once again I thank all the 5 organizations, that is NIPM, ISTD, HRD Network, FMA, and DMA. They liked my idea that we should come together when you speak something very important, and you get the one speaker. Don't create a panel. One speaker, focus, somebody with an authority on that subject. He can make you touch your hearts and make you get that feeling of what you want. So they liked my idea, encouraged me. So we got it done. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you everybody for joining and
But
staying.
GP Garu and Mukesh Bhai, there are
Yes,
almost
sir.
nearly 200 people on the call just now, which is by itself an indication of
Yeah.
what GP Garu is mentioning, that if we have concentrated one good speaker and all 4 organizations get together, we can learn from each other very well.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Very
And
good.
Very well said. Very well said, Akhil. And actually, we have to thank JP Garu. It was a wonderful initiative.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And I think we must continue with this.
Yes, sure.
Akhil, you are
Sure.
absolutely right. It was
Do
very
that,
good.
Do that.
Very
And
well,
Mr.
very well.
Alok Agarwal, what was the number we touched?
326.
326.
Very
I
good.
saw it cross
Akhil bhai.
320.
Akhil by 320 we touched.
320.
326 was the maximum.
And you see, they're all serious
Yeah.
people who want to make a difference to others with their gifts, no? So those are the people who
The
came.
gentleman from Ahmedabad has dialed in. So that is itself is speaking that there's a lot of pull for knowledge.
See,
Sir,
when you
we are
choose
having
the,
a lot of people from other chapters of ISTD.
when you choose the right
Yeah.
topic,
Chennai, Bangalore.
I'm sure same thing, Prem from HRD Network, also a lot of people have dialed in.
Absolutely.
When
From
you choose-
National HRD Network, we had 100+ people.
But this is a
when
good
you choose the
initiative.
right
Yeah,
topic,
Mukesh Bhai,
right
you must
topic,
continue.
right speaker,
Yes.
right topic, right speaker, right format.
That is, yes, that is the key.
People will come. I have
Yes.
seen in webinars people log in and go away. No. These are all serious people. They stayed here with us. So they are compassionate people. They are compassionate leaders. We need such people. And हमारा
So,
कोई
GP
गलती
Garu,
हो,
your
हमारा कोई
discipline
गलती
of
होगा तो माफ कर दीजिएगा.
Garu,
Whole process. Thank you.
your discipline of maintaining timing is also a good factor.
Yep.
Because people
Yes,
know that GP will stop it come what 6:29 you finish. No, it's a big credit to you.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
6:29 you finished.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That is very, very important, sir.
But I hang people with a tear.
We are
Thank you,
here from
thank you,
Bhopal
JP Garu.
chapter also.
Oh, Bhopal.
Oh,
Wonderful.
Rashmi ji, namaskar. Thank
Yeah.
you very much,
Thank
madam.
you, Bhopal.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
I had been a part of National HRD Network also.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mukesh ji, with your permission, can we
Yeah,
formally
please.
close?
Yes.
Once again,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Abhay bhai.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. Thank you.
Akhil, thank you for joining. Thank you so much.
Sir, my
Grateful to
privilege,
you.
sir.
Grateful to you, Akhil bhai. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.